Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And today, we're going to talk about Nimbus Manticore. The Iran Nexus threat actor targets the telecommunications sector in Europe. So, before joining Checkpoint Research, I was the Middle East and Africa team lead at Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center. And let's continue. The agenda for this meeting, so first I'll introduce the Manticore's family. Manticore is how Checkpoint Research use naming taxonomy to track Iran Nexus threat actors. We are going to talk about Nimbus Manticore, which is a long-lasting cyber operations, more than 7 years. I'm going to show you how we first found it in our data sources. We are also talking about the execution chain, and I'll reveal an untracked technique used by this threat actor. Obfuscations, we can do a whole presentation on the obfuscation that Nimbus Manticore did, but I'll just give you a taste of how it looks like. AI, of course, I'll show you how using LLM helped us to detect infrastructure by Nimbus Manticore. And we will talk about attribution, and I think it's really important that when you reach out to customer to be as accurate as possible and to bring the most accurate attribution, and we will summarize the findings. So you can see that talking about Iran Nexus threat actors, we're using two main clusters. The first is the MOIS, the Ministry of Intelligence and Security. And the second is the IRGC, the Revolution Guard Corps. You can see, for example, for the MOIS, that the threat actor scarred Manticore, that also known as APT34. And you can see also Nimbus Manticore, which is the actor that we will discuss about today. We believe that Nimbus Manticore is currently the most sophisticated in the Iran cyber threat ecosystem. So US officials say that this campaign is 14 years old. The front company behind this operation was established 40 years ago. But I wanted to focus on the publication in the cyber industry about this threat. Especially, I wanted to talk about the first publication, Tortoiseshell, by Symantec. They talked about a malware target the IT sector of Saudi Arabia. Then, Cisco Talos had a good publication about a spear phishing campaign target US veterans. It's the first time we are seeing for this threat actor an HR team spear phishing campaign. Then Meta had a publication about social media-driven spear phishing campaign, target US officials and UK officials. And they were the first to tie this operation to the IRGC CEC, which is the Cyber and Electronics Command. Microsoft Digital Crime Unit did a disruption for these threat actors by taking down more than 30 domain names used by this threat actor. And the first to document the shift from exclusive domain to Azure Platform as a Service, SC2, which is a great technique. You just blend in a legitimate traffic of the organization, where Google Threat Intelligence. And this year, we had the Nimbus Manticore publication. So how we first found it in our data sources. So remember the weakest link? It's same for the defenders. How we first found it in our telemetry sources. So it all started via LinkedIn. A fake recruiting profile reached out to the target and ask him to move off platform to email. You can see the spear phishing emails, and the question is why HR team spear phishing is so successful and so popular. This threat actor using it consistently for 7 years. They are changing a lot of things in their TTPs, but the HRT spear phishing remain the same. So I think it takes in consideration the target's psychological states. Maybe he really wants the job. Maybe he's on vacation. Additional thing, you can take a look at the URL, the fake job application website. So each target will get its own dedicated URL with username and password to make it look legitimate. And now I'm going to show you the execution chain. So we'll do it step by step, and I'm going to split it, to break it to 3 steps. And we are going to focus on the circle, which is the multi-DLL sideloading, the new technique that this threat actor used. So first, the victim goes to the fake job application portal to download a file called service-zip. This is a malicious archive. You can see in the archive that there are 3 files. The first file is a benign Microsoft binary, vulnerable to DLL search order hijacking. It's a very popular technique. We are seeing it across all the APTs this year. And you can see 2 more files. The first file is the backdoor, and the second file is the loader. What's surprisingly happening when user env is sideloaded, you can see that it spawns additional process, a child process. Why the threat actor is doing it? But surprisingly, you can see that the child process, which is a benign Microsoft Defender executable, sideloads a DLL from the archive. How the threat actors did it? They are breaking most of the the defenses we have for DLL sideloading that rely on the fact that the application and the malicious DLL are in the same path. You can see that after the loader is loaded to memory and the persistence is set on the system, the command and control chain will start. So you see that the threat actor used to combine Cloudflare infrastructure, which provide the threat actor the ability to keep the attacker's IP confidential, and also using Azure website, Azure Platform as a Service as command and control. So let's talk about the multi-DLL sideloading. Remember XMLite, the loader? So let's see what we know about XMLite so far. So in order to start a DLL search order hijacking for this DLL, you need to bring application vulnerable to DLL sideloading and the malicious DLL to the same path. That's what we know so far. We're seeing that in our case is totally different. So now we'll take a deep dive to the native API that the threat actor used in this case. So the threat actor used the API called RTL create user process from NTDLL DLL. A key structure in this operation is RTL user process parameters. This structure will help us to understand the attack. So if we're talking about the target process loader, so first it will try to search for the DLL in the same path as the executable. If it won't work, it will go to system32. That's the original way. But if we are setting DLL path parameter, first the threat actor will try to search the DLL in the same path of the executable. But after that, it will go to the DLL path that we set. Think about it. The threat actor gets a huge advantage. The threat actor can load the malicious DLL from any path in disk the threat actor wants. And in addition, the threat actor, there is no need anymore to bring the vulnerable application to the same folder as the malicious DLL. Are we ready for this new technique? We're working on a recognition for this in order to find additional threat actors using it and raise awareness. Let's look at the POC code. So it's really simple. We are using the get current module dir to get our current directory, and just setting it as the DLL path. And let's see the result. You can see the result that the benign Microsoft Defender binary will try to load XMLite from the same path, but XMLite is not there. So the binary will load XMLite from the actor-controlled path. That's the new technique. And now we'll talk about the obfuscation. As I mentioned, mini-junk is a really heavy lifting in reverse engineering, but I wanted to give you a taste of how DLL main looks like. Let's look at DLL main. You can see encoded pointers. The encoded pointers represent indirect jumps in the code. It's like saying call RAX or jump RAX, for example. And you can see also junk code. The junk code is a population calculation of a variable, but it's meaningless. I mean, it's just like writing if true in the code. The purpose is to make the life of the reverse engineer much, much difficult. And it's successful because we know that currently there is a real struggle to reverse engineer the samples of mini-junk. And we had to think about a solution, a creative solution to do it properly. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is the infrastructure detection using LLM. So let's first define what is the problem. So what is the problem in our case? We know the specific pattern that Nimbus Manticore is using to register domain. You can see that it's word, hyphen separated, and there is also 3 digits there. But we had a challenge. When we looked at our data sources, we saw that there is 700 results daily. And I must say that in the beginning, I just did it manually to find additional infrastructure. But let's see how LLM helped us in this case. So I like to use Jupyter Lab to solve problems. It's really recommended. And in this case, I chose to use the OpenAI text embedding module. I was inspired from work of one of my colleagues. And basically, I can get per each domain a mathematical representation. And then I can take all the results, all the vectors offline, and clusterize them to the number of clusters I want. And you can see in the next slide what happened when I choose to 10 clusters. So cluster 6 was the interesting cluster because you can see all the disclosed domains linked to Nimbus Manticore and the undisclosed domains in the same cluster. And we were able to verify that the undisclosed domains are also linked to this threat actor. So in this case, you can see that in a simple script, just using text embedding that is built on similarities between words, we can fight and identify malicious infrastructure. And now, I wanted to talk with you about attribution. So in threat intelligence, attribution is really important to get the most accurate result, and we talked about it in the last presentations. So how we are doing it? We are using the diamond model, which is very popular to do the attribution. We are looking at the adversary, what we know about the adversary, the victimology, the targeted countries and the targeted sectors, the malware capabilities, and we are trying to find similarities in malware analysis, and the infrastructure. So close to our publication, we saw additional blog, which was really good, about Subtle Snail, which is a threat actor that was attributed to ANC 1549 by Google. But when we looked closely about it, we saw that there are multiple differences between the original Nimbus Manticore to the subtle snake cluster. We believe that these two threat actors, they are basically operating as the same in the same organizations, but we saw that there are a lot of differences between them. For example, the targeted countries. You can see that in Nimbus Manticore, the main targeted country was Israel, and in Subtle Snail, the main targeted country was the United States. If we are talking about the targeted sector, the main targeted sector was the aviation sector. And for Subtle Snail, the main targeted sector was the satellite sector. Obfuscation, they both did code obfuscation, but we had a lot of differences between the mini-junk malware and the Subtle Snail malware. The file size, for example, was close to 30 megabytes for the mini-junk malware. So our conclusion was that basically there are two different teams operating under the same umbrella, under the same front company. The first, the original Nimbus Manticore, is what tracked by Google as ANC 1549. And the second is what was published in the past by Microsoft Threat Intelligence as Pitch Sandstorm, which is a threat actor targets the satellite sector worldwide. So you can see how important is the attribution work to get the most accurate results, especially when you go to a customer and alert that they are targeted by a threat. You need to do it as much as accurate as possible. So, summary notes for the presentation. First, I wanted to welcome Nimbus Manticore. Nimbus Manticore is a threat actor here to stay. You're seeing that they are operating more than 7 years, and we will definitely hear about them in the future and the advancement they will do. Second, I wanted to highlight the IRGC's cyber capability, which consistently increase over time. And the last thing is one key that I want you to take from these presentations. You can see that in the spear phishing campaign, they stick to the HR team's spear phishing campaign for close to 7 years. So you see the threat actors evolving over time, but they tend to stick to their old tricks. And it's important to us as defenders because it provides us the advantage and the ability to hunt them. For example, if I know that a threat actor tends to stick to DLL hijacking as a technique to execute on disk, I need to make sure that I'm tracking it in the most efficient way to make sure that I'll find it in the future. And if I know that my threat actor is focusing on spear phishing, I'll need to make sure my email security is the best and to create the relevant tracking to find it in the future and to make sure that the visibility remains high. So thank you so much. We have time for questions.
Brilliant, Roi. Thank you so much. We do have time for questions. I keep forgetting to tell people at the start that Slido is open, but of course it is open. So I'll start with one. I'm going to pick up right on your last point. You said there's an invitation to defend. We now know you've not so warmly welcomed Nimbus Manticore to the firmament of threat actors. What specifically do you think and what organizations need to do, and which type of organizations, what do they need to do differently in order to counter the threat of Nimbus Manticore?
Okay, so it's a good question. I think first you need to think out of the box, talking about infrastructure, because the threat actor will try to use a legitimate infrastructure as a key part of the attack. We saw for Nimbus Manticore in the past that they also used legitimate file hosting services as a command and control, and also music apps. They used to write comments in the music apps to just blend in a legitimate traffic of organizations. So I think for defenders, it's important to think out of the box what will be the targets, the threat actors' infrastructure that they will use in the attack. The use of Azure platform as a service was very successful for them because defenders sometimes just whitelist these domains in protection.
Well, I was going to ask you a general question about their exploitation of old vulnerabilities, but we've got one here. Why is DLL search order hijacking still viable after all these years? I don't know if that's a rhetorical question from Anonymous, but what do you think? Why are they able to exploit this?
Well, so first of all, you can say that it's maybe job security because DLL search order hijacking is a really popular technique and really hard to detect. I think it's something that I'm doing daily. It's really popular across all the APT's ecosystem, also in Chinese threat actors. For example, you have the ShadowPad framework using DLL search order hijacking. I think it's a real challenge for defenders to find it, and maybe we can use generative AI to help us with finding and building better detections for DLL search order hijacking.
All right, I'm getting the sense that the questions coming in are going to pull you in every direction rather than just Nimbus Manticore. So defensive controls against these human deception campaigns. What's worked, particularly the technical ones? You don't have to confine yourself to the technical ones, but what is working? What's not working that people might be using?
I'm thinking about the spear phishing campaign that we need to go back to the basics because also Checkpoint, they are doing tests to their employees, and it's really difficult to find if it's a spear phishing or not. But I think we need to go to the basics in this case to see if the sender is a first sender, if the sender is outside your organization. That's the anchors that you can use in order to protect customers. You need to make sure that it's highlighted enough to protect your employees. And I think it's still a good approach to fight spear phishing campaign.
Well, and very detailed question. What do you think about Microsoft justifying the problem of sideload DLLs, something that cannot be patched? It's the normal behavior of the OS. Nice, easy one for you.
So,
don't need to take any care with that answer at all.
You know, what's the meaning of DLL sideloading? It's basically the developer that chose to use load library in the code. There are multiple differences why it's like this for performance and things like this. But I think a lot of wild things happening in the level of Windows internals, and it makes a difficulty for us to determine what is a new technique and what is just a regular behavior of the system. And it's not the same time that this is an answer for applications to get acknowledged for a new one-track techniques, that it's just a feature of the system. It makes our work much difficult.
Very deftly answered. Back to attribution, what are the technical indicators that make you confident that this is linked to the same developers behind earlier Iranian clusters, rather than somebody just imitating them?
So it's a really good question because the reverse engineering work, it's really heavy lifting, and sometimes you need the help of a full reverse engineering to see how the functions are structured and how specifically the command and control was implemented. And in our research, our conclusion was that it's the same framework. It's like the same framework that's shared between additional Iranian access actors. And I can tell you additional things that we found similarities with additional actor called Muddy Water, which is really popular. And we believe that there is a shared development framework that the threat actors using. And this conclusion is helping us in the attribution because we need to be accurate in the reverse engineer work that supports our findings. So we can see interesting thing that maybe there is a platform that is shared between multiple Iran Nexus threat actors that are not necessarily Nimbus Manticore. But you need to be accurate in the attribution to get the exact answer.
Okay. Let me turn back to a question around what's driving this activity. So this morning we had a couple of presentations, if you like, on criminal motivations on younger people, and we got quite a vivid picture of who these people are and what their motivations are. We're talking young, often Western males. We're talking about motivations and money. Could you give us a sense, if you can, and I know it's much harder for a nation-state actor, but what is driving this activity? What's the strategic purpose of it? Who's commanding it? And have you got any sense of the sort of organization and types of individuals that are conducting these campaigns?
Yeah, so we had today multiple cybercrime-oriented presentations, and I think here it's totally different because the IRGC, it's an organization with purposes, and I think that they need to conduct. And I think first it represents this access to organization. It represents the strength of Iran. Yeah. This is one of the goals. And the second goal is to access technologies by the Iranian regime, which is one of the purposes of the IRGC and also the Ministry of Intelligence and Security. We had to think about this question a lot, why they want to access a lot of satellite providers. Yeah. And they just, what is the purpose? Why they are not just accessing one satellite provider? So that was our conclusion, that they want to, it's for the strength of Iran, to represent the power of Iran, and get access to modern technologies worldwide.
Okay, and final quick question, but it's a double question. How good are they now relative to all the threat actors that you study? And are they on a trajectory? Are they plateauing? Are they getting better? Where do you see them going?
So I think two major trends that we are seeing is, first, they are in the level of adapting AI to make their work more productive. Yeah. This is one thing. And the second thing is the move to cloud intrusions. And this is a really scary future because the Iran Nexus threat actors, they are moving from on-prem intrusions to cloud intrusions. We are seeing intrusions against Azure. We are seeing AWS infrastructure used for password spray purposes, and I think they are learning. They know that the future of the transition is the transition to cloud, and I think that the most sophisticated one in this case, in the Iran Nexus threat actors, is Nimbus Manticore. Because Nimbus Manticore were the first one to understand that using Azure infrastructure, using cloud infrastructure can be advantage in their operation.
So you think we'll be talking about Nimbus Manticore for a while. All right, thank you so much. Great to have you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.